Good morning and welcome into Game Day, Mizzou fans or Tennessee fans or anybody else who might be watching. I am Gabe DeArmond. This is the pregame call, our weekly Mizzou pregame show, Missouri and Tennessee. Kickoff at 11 a.m. on the SEC network. That means it is 9:30, and we are here 90 minutes, now 89 minutes before kickoff, as we are every single Saturday. We're going to talk Mizzou, Tennessee here coming up shortly. We'll talk to Brent Hubbs from VolQuest.com. He covers Tennessee. We'll check in with Mitchell Forty from Faurot Field, and we'll throw some numbers at you and just kind of break down matchups and all that. But first of all, do want to let you guys know one more time this Saturday that our pregame show every week is brought to you guys by the Colin Gentry Law Group in Jefferson City. They can do pretty much anything: personal injury, wrongful death, business law, family law, criminal law, contracts, government relations, labor practices, litigation, appellate work. Anything you need in a courtroom, Colin Gentry Law Group is the place you go. You can catch them online at callgentry.com. You can give them a call at 573-691-4567. Again, 573-691-4567 to set up a consultation. Chip and Jason and the gang at Call and Gentry will take care of you guys. So if you find yourselves in need of some sort of legal advice, please give them the first shot at your business. So first matters first. It is raining right now in Columbia, Missouri. It looks like that should end shortly after 11 a.m. Wet field, wet ball could affect the game early on, but the rain is supposed to clear out. No lightning in the area, no thunder so far this morning, so I don't think it's a situation where kickoff is in any danger of being delayed or anything like that. I think this one should start right around 11 o'clock, the Tigers and the Vols, and you know, it'll be overcast probably, not hot or cold really, but I don't think the weather has a huge effect on this one. It's supposed to rain this morning, supposed to storm tonight, but in the window of the game from 11 to, 2:30, it looks like everything should be mostly okay for Missouri and Tennessee. The first thing we always kind of like to do is just take a look at some numbers and kind of compare the teams offensively. And this is what you've got here for Mizzou and Tennessee. Tennessee runs about 5 more plays per game, but the truth is they're not a better offensive football team than Missouri, and they're a little bit faster. A lot has been made of them running 3 plays per minute and all that, and there are times, we've seen Josh Heupel's offense, there are times that they are going to, get going at a tempo that will stress the defense. But so far this year, honestly, Tennessee, Heupel said they're not going as fast as he wants to go, and they've been relatively average, I would say, offensively. Now, they run the ball well. You might know that's a problem for Missouri. And they run it primarily with 2 guys. Tyon Evans is the leading rusher on the team. He's got 42 carries for 211 yards and 2 touchdowns. Then Jabari Small has 41 carries for 194 yards and 2 touchdowns. So you combine those 2 guys, they're averaging 28 carries for 135 yards and 1.3 touchdowns a game. I don't know if you guys know this. Missouri's not very good at stopping the run. They have struggled. They are 129th in the country at run defense. It's got to get better. I mean, it's just by simple, nothing else than the law of averages, it's got to get better. I know Missouri's been terrible. I cannot believe that this is the second worst defense in America and the worst defense in Power 5 football. I just don't see it. I'm not saying they're great, but they've got to be better than that, right? So Going to just get to some of your guys' comments and appreciate those of you who are here at the beginning with us. While you're here, hit that like button, subscribe to the channel. That'll give you an alert when we go live for postgame, because obviously we don't know exactly when that is. But Adam says, I have another bad feeling about this game. Feels like Tennessee is going to put up 50 on us. And look, I understand why a Missouri fan would feel that way. I mean, the defense has done almost nothing to make you feel good going into games, right? This is the second week in a row that my belief is what you've got is a game between two very, very similar teams. Missouri and Boston College, I think if they play 10 times, I think BC wins 5 and Missouri wins 5. I think those were very evenly matched football teams. BC was just one play better on that day. I think Missouri's a little bit better than Tennessee. Now, I don't think it's a giant gap or anything, but I think if they played 10 times, Missouri maybe wins 6 of those games. So obviously that doesn't mean anything because this is not a 10-game series. This is a one-shot deal, and it's about whoever plays better today. If they both play their A game, it's my belief Missouri is a little bit better. That probably is why Missouri is favored by 2.5 points, right? So I don't think it is I don't think the gap is large, but Missouri is better at quarterback. They're better at receiver. The offensive line, I think Missouri's a little bit better, maybe. Tennessee's offensive line is a little banged up. You'll hear about that in a few minutes when we talk with Brent Hubbs. Tennessee, well, it's not fair to say Tennessee's better at running back because Missouri's pretty good at running back. So offensively, Missouri's better, I think. Now, defensively, Missouri's not better than anybody, guys. Not the way they played so far. So Tennessee gets the edge there. Missouri has been very good on special teams this year. Tennessee has done a lot of things to hurt itself, penalties, drops, things like that. Missouri's done some of that too. But it seems just from talking to people and all that Tennessee has done a little bit more. Both teams come in 2-2. Missouri lost a game to a Kentucky team that is better than Missouri. I don't think there's much doubt. A good team, I'd say borderline top 25-ish type team. Tennessee lost to Florida. Florida is a borderline, probably top 10 or 15 team. The difference there, Missouri lost by 7, Tennessee lost by 24. Florida actually plays Kentucky today. That's going to be one that's interesting to watch. Then the other game is very similar. Tennessee lost to Pitt by 3 at home. Missouri lost to Boston College in overtime on the road. Those are very similar losses. They have both beaten 2 bad teams. They've both beaten an FCS team and then a lower-level FBS team. So this game, I have taken to, I don't think you guys will like this, I have taken to this week calling this the Duke's Mayo Bowl playoff game because I think the winner in this game has a path. I don't want to call it a clear path, but a pretty reasonable path to 6 wins, maybe 7, but certainly 6. The loser in this game, I'm not sure how you get to 6 if you lose this game, if you're either team. So, because we started Missouri's season, and we've got the schedule over here on the left-hand side of the screen. We started the season saying, all right, Central Michigan, SEMO, Vandy, and South Carolina, and North Texas should be wins, right? And South Carolina, look, you can argue that putting that in the win category is a little too far. So let's say don't put that in the win category. Just Central Michigan, SEMO, North Texas, Vandy. Nothing that Missouri has done in the first 4 weeks showed that they're going to lose to North Texas or Vandy. So that's minimum 4 wins. The losses, we started the season saying that they would likely be Georgia, Florida, and Texas A&M. Texas A&M is not as good as people thought. Arkansas is better than people thought. Now, I'm not writing Arkansas off as a game Missouri could win. Georgia and Florida are very unlikely wins. A&M and Arkansas, if you look at those, I'd say it's certainly likely you lose at least one of those, right? So let's say there's 3 losses. So that puts you 4-5, and the games left on the schedule that we haven't talked about are Tennessee, South Carolina, and then that other one between Arkansas and A&M. To get to a bowl game, you've got to win 2 of those. So if Missouri loses today, What that means is they've not only got to beat North Texas and Vandy, they've got to beat South Carolina, and they've got to take one from A&M or Arkansas, and that's just to get to 6. You lose this game, you're starting to look at a losing record probably being likely, and that would not be disastrous, but that would hurt. I don't think there's any question. The 2-2 start, I think Missouri's been one play worse than I thought they would be. I picked them to be 3-1 through 4 games. I picked them to lose at Kentucky and win at Boston College. So had they made one more play last week, that's exactly where they are. So I don't think they've been significantly worse than I expected them to be. It's been very similar. I think they have been a little bit worse than some fans expected them to be. This one, though, like a lot of people, especially the reasonable people, still view this as, hey, so, it's a process. They're not there, but I see the signs and I like things and don't feel terrible. You lose this game, and that takes a lot of wind out of the sails, guys. I mean, homecoming next week, North Texas is already, it's not going to be a good crowd. It's probably not going to be over 50,000, maybe a little bit because it's homecoming, but I'd be surprised. But you lose this game, and that goes down. And then you get to the A&M game. If you lose today, you're 3-3. A&M's probably no better than 4-2. And a lot of people that said, well, I was going to that game because that was going to be the big game. I was going to be 5-1 and 6-0. All of a sudden, a lot of people might go, I think I'd probably stay home for that one. So this is huge. I don't really think there's a way to overstate it. Cam Cameron says if Josh Heupel is smart, he'll run the ball 75 times, but I'm not sure he can help himself. And I actually said that on our postgame show last week. And then I started to look at the numbers. And the impression we have of Josh Heupel simply isn't true this year. Tennessee is running the ball 60% of the time. They have run the ball 180 times. They have passed it 120 times. It's actually like 181 to 120. So it's almost exactly 60% of the time. Flip side, Missouri has thrown the ball more than 58% of the time. So if there is a team that is pass happy in this matchup, it's actually Missouri. And Josh Heupel has shown, like I said, their top 2 running backs are averaging 28 carries a game between them. Tennessee runs the ball 45 times a game, and they throw it 30. So they run the ball significantly more than they throw it, and that could be a problem for Missouri. And we've talked about this a lot this week. It all comes down to first down for the Missouri defense. Because if I'm the opposing offensive coordinator or head coach, I'm running the ball against Missouri on first down like 97% of the time. I think some of the times when Missouri's gotten stops, it's happened because opposing offensive coordinators have tried to outsmart themselves and they've thrown the ball on first down. No, just hand it off on first down. They're giving up 6 yards a carry. So odds are you're going to be in like 2nd and 4. If Missouri can stop, not even stop, but hold a team to 2 yards, maybe even 3 yards, and put them in 2nd and 7, then maybe they just can't hand it off every play and continue to move the chains. Maybe they actually have to go to the air and throw the football. So far, Missouri hasn't been able to do that. So, again, if I'm Josh Heupel, I'm handing the ball off on first down until they prove to me I'm not going to be in 2nd and 5 every time. Because if you're in 2nd and 5 every time, all you got to do is hand it off 2 more times, and this defense is probably giving you a first down, and you're probably moving it down the field. As has long been said in football, if you throw the ball, 3 things can happen, and 2 of them are bad. If you run the ball, there is a lot less likelihood for something disastrous happening. Mark says if you can play man-to-man on their wide receivers, the offense is not good. And I think that's generally true, right, of almost any offense. The Tennessee receivers have struggled. They don't have a game breaker at wide out. If I'm Steve Wilks, and formationally this is tough with Tennessee, but if I'm Steve Wilks, I'm putting 7 guys in the box on pretty much every snap. And I'm just telling Ennis Rakestraw and Caleb Evans and Chris Abrams-Drain or whoever else is out there, hey, you're going to go one-on-one. And if you get beat, we're going to give up a big play. But you've got to stop just giving up 5, 6, 7 yards a carry. As the announcer said in the BC game last week, it's demoralizing. It's not just demoralizing for a defense. It's demoralizing for your offense sitting on the sidelines. It's demoralizing for the fans who are either sitting in the stands or watching on TV, there is almost nothing worse than watching your team just be futile against a straight-ahead running game. So yeah, I agree, Mark. You're gonna have to take some risks. You're gonna have to put your corners on an island, and you're just gonna have to live with it. Howard is asking, do you have a feel on the vibe of this Mizzou team? Still believing in the plan? Yeah, I get no impression that anybody's like jumping ship or 2-2 was always a possibility. Now, are they disappointed? I'm sure they're disappointed. If you watched Eli Drinkwitz's post-game press conference at BC, he was disappointed. No question about it. They want to be better. They probably feel like they should be better. Now, I think there probably is some, I don't want to say finger pointing, but I think the offensive side of the football probably understands at this point our defense is what it is. Like, might get a little better, but it's not going to be good. We're going to have to carry this thing. Missouri's going to have to score 30 to win most games, and maybe 35 or 40. So I think there's probably a little bit of an understanding of that, but I don't think there's any, oh my God, let's panic. And that kind of ties into Adam asking if the defense struggles the rest of the year, could you see Drink making a change at DC? I'm not going to say it's impossible. If they end up 129th in the country against the run, anything's possible, right? But that's the type of thing I really don't want to see out of a second-year head coach. Because, look, he kept Ryan Walters last year, and we told you guys all through last year, this is probably a one-year deal. Walters isn't his long-term guy. This is his guy. He went out and hired him. He hired Jethro Franklin. He handpicked him. If this doesn't work, that's on the head coach. And what I don't like to see is after 1 year, the head coach just saying, well, I'm going to blame that guy. It's his fault. Well, no, you picked it. It's your fault if it doesn't work. And I don't think Drinkwitz would fire him after 1 year. Now, again, if they're 129th in the country and they're giving up 38 points a game, hey, all bets are off the table, right? Anything's possible. But if you make another change, you're talking about guys learning their third scheme in 3 years, and are they any better at the beginning of next year than they are at this one? So, and also, we've got 8 games left to have a chance to see some improvement. So we'll see how that goes. Justin Ferguson said the Tennessee offense going fast could help Wilkes simplify things that may help the defense play fast. And there's some truth to that, right? There's a lot of times you can't substitute on defense, and you can't run a bunch of different things. It just has to be, hey, here's the base defense, and this is what it is, because Tennessee's not changing a lot, and so we don't have time to change, and they're running a play every 18 seconds, so we got to keep our guys out there. It's an optimistic look, but certainly something to keep an eye on. Adam says Drink said that Michael Cox earned more carries after the SEMO game, and yet he only got 1 carry last week, and it was a touchdown. Yeah, I've kind of quit putting any stock on what Eli Drinkwitz says about the running backs. I just assume it's going to be 95% Tyler Beatty at this point, because he talked up Elijah Young. We've barely seen him. He's talked about Michael Cox getting more carries. We've barely seen him. They're going to ride Tyler Beatty till they can't ride him anymore. Michael Kaiser says, do you think Heupel gets too emotional and it hurts his play calling? I don't really see that. I'm not sure what the basis for that is. I've never seen Josh lose his cool. Never seen him freaking out on the sidelines or anything. No, I don't think so. Gary says this may be stating the obvious, but if the D can get some stops and force a few turnovers, we got a chance. Look, if the defense gets some stops and forces a few turnovers, Missouri will win this game. I mean, I think you're at the point where, like Chiefs fans were 4 years ago, 3-4 years ago, where you're just going, just give us 2 stops a half. Whether it's turnover, downs, punt, whatever. Just give us 2 stops a half, and we'll take our chances. With Drink's comments about Mookie Cooper earlier in the day, do you expect he'll sit today? Yeah, he's already been ruled out. The injury report came out Thursday night. Mookie Cooper's out. Darius Robinson's out. Case Cook is listed as questionable, I think. There are a couple other guys listed as questionable, but Mookie Cooper's not playing. Drinkwood said he basically did him a disservice and tried to play him too soon, and he's not healthy. Set him back. So, hey, kudos to the head coach for stepping up and saying that. Okay, yeah, T-Rise helping us out. Barrett Bannister, Case Cook, Nico Hay, all questionable for this game. So, especially with Mookie Cooper out, Missouri needs Barrett Bannister. They need Case Cook too. He's probably their best offensive lineman. So those are guys that if they – now, look, Drinkwitz told us 2 weeks ago against SEMO that Case Cook could have played. And then he didn't play last week against Boston College. So kind of like the running backs, I just don't believe the injury stuff. We'll see. We're going to talk to Mitch in about half an hour. We'll see who's in uniform and suited up over there for Missouri in this one. But you just can't really trust anything that a coach says due to injury. Hey, appreciate all you guys who are here watching with us and commenting and all that. A lot of you have already hit the like button on the show. I'd appreciate it if you do that, because what that does, it makes things more visible. The more interaction we get, the more people that can see the show, the more people who hang out with us every week, the better the show is, because this is a better show when you guys have comments and questions and all that, and it's not just me sitting here talking for an hour and 15 minutes. So if you hit the like button, that's good. Also, while you're here, subscribe to the channel, because what that's going to do is that going to give you an ability to get a push notification when we go live. That comes in especially handy for the post-game show. We try to start our post-game show within about 10 minutes of the end of the game. Obviously, we don't know exactly when the game's going to end. So if you subscribe to the channel, you're going to get a notification on your phone or your laptop or whatever every time we go live. Hey, PowerMizzou.com's live. So you don't have to sit around and wait for the post-game show to start. You'll just get a push notification, hit that, and you'll come in and join the Boulevard Brewing Company post-game drink. Real quick, before we get to my interview from Thursday with Brent Hubbs of VolQuest.com, we're going to give you guys a little more insight to Tennessee from somebody who knows a lot more than I do, but do want to remind you about the Call and Gentry Law Group in Jefferson City. They sponsor this show every single week. They can handle any of your legal needs that you have in pretty much any area. Chip and Jason and Emily and the gang down there do a great job. I have used them. I try to stress this. Our sponsors are almost exclusively companies and people that I know personally and that I have used personally. I have used Call and Gentry for a number of things over the years, and contracts, things like that. They can do that. They can do business law. They do personal injury. You call them at 573-691-4567, 691-4567. You can get online at callgentry.com and schedule a consultation. They are located in Jefferson City. Now, certainly they can handle things far outside of Jefferson City, but if you're in the mid-Missouri area and just wanted to swing by their office, they are down in Jefferson City, and you could do that. So, again, like we do pretty much every week, we try to check in with an insider from the other team, somebody who covers Missouri's opposition. I did that with Brent Hubbs of VolQuest.com a couple of days ago. Want to play that here for you guys now. When we come back, we'll talk a little bit about what else is going on in the SEC. We'll check in with Mitchell Forty over at Memorial Stadium. But here is my chat. It's about 20-25 minutes with Brent Hubbs of VolQuest.com, so get a little insight on the Vols here. I think, Brent, one of the few guys I know that's been doing this longer than I have. So you're the expert, man. Tennessee under Josh Heupel. Do we know anything about him really through 4 weeks, or is this still kind of a learning process?
Oh, I think it's a learning process for everybody at this point, Gabe, and I appreciate you having me on. But, at this point, what we've seen through 4 games is that they have the ability to scheme guys open. They've missed a good number of open plays. I think you guys know that and saw that with Josh Heupel. There's 4 or 5 plays a game, it seems like, where he has somebody running free. The question is, can you capitalize on those plays? And Tennessee hasn't capitalized on enough of those. You look back at the Pittsburgh game, they had 3 guys open behind the secondary in the first quarter, and they didn't capitalize on it. They should have had 21 points in the first quarter. Easy. Maybe even 28, but definitely 21, and they come away with 7 after the block punt. And then last week, they did hit a couple of plays, but they missed a couple of plays as well. And so I think the biggest takeaway for fans is, hey, this guy can get people open. Just got to get some people that can catch the ball and get a quarterback that can get it to him better than what's happened the first 4 games of the season.
Yeah, you tell me if I'm wrong here. My read on this game is it's 2 fan bases that are going into this one that just want to give you reasons why the other team's going to win. I mean, all week, Tyon Evans comes out and says, I don't want to talk about the Missouri defense, but we're going to have some fun. And the entire response on our board was, well, yeah, they are. He's right, So am I misreading that from the Tennessee side?
Yeah, I mean, I think so. I mean, because Tennessee fans have been through a lot, just like Missouri fans have been through a lot. Every time you take a step forward, it feels like there's 2 steps backwards. And so you kind of just walk around waiting for the other shoe to drop sometimes. And, that was the case last week at Florida. Here's Tennessee with a 14-10 lead in the second quarter. You poll 10 fans, 20 fans at that point. They go, hey, what do you feel about your chances? And they're going to go, probably not real good, like you're waiting for the next thing to happen. And, and that's not Josh Heupel's fault. That's 10 years or better, 20 years, 15 or whatever the number is now. I'm old, so I just quit counting a long time ago. But battle scars where they just didn't get it done. This is a program that's lost on multiple Hail Marys. They lost a game where in a bowl game against North Carolina, where the next year they changed the rule completely on the clock. Because North Carolina ran out the clock. We got an extra kick because they made a mistake. And then, they lined up with 13 players on the field in a goal line situation at LSU and cost them a game. So Tennessee's found ways to lose games. So that's kind of where the Tennessee fan base is. They want to be optimistic. They do.
Yeah.
That there's some things like out of Josh Heupel and what they've seen so far. There's some things that still have them approach.
Hey, we'll get to a little more about this matchup in a minute, but I kind of wanted to ask you about Josh. I mean, my first reaction when the hire was made, I think Josh is a good football coach. He was a good football coach here. I always got along with him fine. I think the major question is, does he have the personality that it takes to kind of handle some of the stuff that comes along with being Tennessee's head coach? I mean, is that a fair question to ask here early on?
Well, sure. I think that's always a question when you hire somebody, is can they handle it? Tennessee's most 2 successful coaches were former players here. Okay, Johnny Majors and Philip Fulmer. They knew Tennessee backwards and forwards. They played here, got Tennessee. They understood it. Tennessee hired Lane Kiffin, good football coach, right? He wasn't ready for this job because he didn't understand it. Now he's embracing the Grove. He's embracing those things at Ole Miss that here he thought it was wackadoo, right? I mean, he goes through his first ball walk and he's got on his $400 sunglasses and never looks at anybody. Grasp magnitude of the job and the magnitude of the SEC. He does now because why? He was at Tennessee, he was at Alabama. So now when he goes to Ole Miss, he's very, very much more prepared for it. Jeremy Pruitt clearly not ready to be a head coach.
Right.
Clearly not ready to be. I don't think Butch Jones could handle the criticisms. I think we don't know. I mean, coaches talk about it all the time. And Josh has talked about this week. We'll see how this team handles things when adversity hits.
Yeah.
We'll see how Josh Heupel and his staff handle things when adversity hits. Right now, it's the honeymoon period. He's not over the honeymoon period yet. It's not there, Eli Drinkwitz has been in the honeymoon period. Now it's a little bit, wait a minute. What about this defensive coordinator you brought in? What was that all about? That's on your watch type deal. Changes as you pile up the games. So right now it's the honeymoon. Everybody's, I won't say happy, but everybody's okay.
Right. One more about Josh, and then we'll talk about this matchup. I'm just curious. My favorite Josh Heupel story was always, he made a game of, in press conferences, refusing to say anything interesting, right? One time, I always remember, he walked out of a press conference as Missouri's offensive coordinator and looked at me and Dave Matter from the St. Louis Post-Dispatch and said, hope you guys got a lot out of that. I mean, it was like he was just doing it to entertain himself. He knew he was saying absolutely nothing. And it didn't bother me. I just always kind of found it funny. I mean, do you feel like you can kind of go in and write Josh's press conferences before they start, or has that changed since he's become a head coach?
Well, if you would have asked me that question the first week of fall camp, I would have said no. 4 weeks into the season, I would say, yeah, I got a pretty good idea of what he's going to say. When you ask about an injury, well, the guy got on the grass and did some work. Translation, I'm not telling you anything about whether or not he's going to play or not. The latest thing is about this team needs to prepare better the last 48 hours before the game. They need to do a better job of that. specifically, we're not going to get into a lot of specifics about that. So yeah, he politely says nothing, and I think a lot of coaches try to perfect that. And once he got into game mode, which was about midway through fall camp, it changed. Now on his radio show last night, he was a little more forthcoming. He was a little more open. But when he gets in front of a podium, yeah, he has no plan, no desire to offer up a whole lot. Then the previous coach didn't either. Right. I mean, Jeremy Pruitt first year didn't mention a player's name. Now the difference, Josh lets his assistants talk, which is a little bit of a nice caveat that you can hear more. We went through 3 years where an assistant wasn't allowed to talk, under Jeremy Pruitt, because that's the Saban rule. So, right. Everybody's different. We'll see how Josh kind of grows in that. He comes from UCF, where you got the Orlando Sentinel shows up for a column, maybe a TV comes, so he walks into a press conference. There's 30 people at every press conference he's at, and it's like, and somebody asking him a question today based off his radio show last night. He's like, "You guys actually listen to that?" Right. It's good to know you guys are listening. It's like, yeah, right. Everybody's like, yeah, we follow everything you say, right. And so that's part of the learning curve of the SEC.
Right, which is funny because Josh has been at Missouri and Oklahoma. I mean, he's not unused to that. But the answer to this question, maybe nobody really knows, given what we were just talking about. But who do you think starts at quarterback for Tennessee, or who gets most of the reps this week?
Well, I'll say this first of all about Missouri and Oklahoma. It was as an assistant coach, not as a head coach.
Right.
So as an assistant coach, if you were asked about injuries, you could always go, hey, that's the head coach's decision to talk about that, not mine. It was an easy out. This one's a little different because you're in charge of that narrative and those types of those answers that you could sidestep when you're an assistant coach. As for the quarterback, Hendon Hooker has practiced this week. He starting Tuesday. He's practiced. He's taken some first team reps. Will he start? I don't think we know. I mean, if I were putting it out there, I would say, yeah. I mean, that's probably the direction I would lean unless something crazy happens the last 36 hours here. But I think he's going to be able to go. Joe Milton's going to be able to go and should be available if needed as well. I think what we've seen the last 4 games, Tennessee's a better offense when Hendon Hooker's at the quarterback controls versus Joe Milton or anybody else.
Yeah, that's what I was going to ask. I mean, why is that? Because Milton seems now to have kind of developed the reputation of the guy that you look at him and every coach falls in love with him, but it just hasn't quite translated to game day.
Yeah, I mean, I think the one thing about Hendon Hooker is he's really competitive. Mm-hmm. He has a high competitive spirit about him, if you will. He does bounce back from adversity pretty quick. He's a better runner with the ball than Joe Milton is. And Joe just the game, and I don't know this, okay? This is just from a guy who's watched a lot of quarterbacks through the years who doesn't know how to play quarterback and can't throw it 20 yards. But the game looks fast for Joe Milton right now. It looks like everything is really fast. Now, that opening quarter against Bowling Green, he was dealing, but Bowling Green was playing off coverage. It was raise up, throw it laterally. It was throw a quick hitch. It was a one read and go type deal. And then when they kind of changed defenses, he missed a couple throws, had a couple drops. He kind of got off of his game that way. And then he just seemingly hasn't been able to make that play to really get him going. You kind of thought if he could connect on a deep ball, maybe that would get him kind of in the right direction. He threw a ball in the fourth quarter against Florida to Velus Jones. He threw two slants or posts to Velus Jones, and they were on the money. One of them Velus dropped. The other, Velus didn't have a choice but to catch it because it about impaled him because he threw it so hard. And you're like, okay, here he goes. And then he missed his next 3 or 4. Mm-hmm. And so he just can't find a rhythm for whatever reason, which is a surprise to everybody. I think that, he was a guy that you talk to anybody in the program, Gabe, in the preseason, players, other coaches, the head coach, observers to practice. Joe Milton was clear and far away the best quarterback in the preseason. It just hasn't translated to the game when it becomes 11 on 11.
Yeah, having watched 4 Missouri games now, who plays quarterback may be immaterial as long as he is capable of turning around and handing the ball to someone. I mean, I'm sure that Tennessee's coaches aren't thrilled with what Tyon Evans said, but at the same time, it's fair criticism. I mean, Missouri is better than exactly one team in the country at stopping the run. I've got to imagine anybody's plan is just come in and hand the ball off until they prove that we have to do something else.
Yeah, I'm not sure when we'll get to talk to Tyon Evans again. He might
It
have put
might be
him.
next year.
He might have put himself in media quarantine for a
Right.
while with those comments. But Missouri, obviously struggled to stop the run. I watched the Boston College game and went back and watched it. What Boston College does is not what Tennessee does. Okay, Boston College, big, heavy, 2 tight ends, cram it in there, tighten everything down. Tennessee's going to try to run it out of the spread. Kentucky did that. Can Tennessee have that kind of success? This is not the healthiest Tennessee offensive line. Their center, Cooper Mays, he tried to play last week, re-aggravated an ankle, looks doubtful for this week. Would be really surprised if he plays. They're different when he's not on the field. They don't play as fast. They don't seem to play as clean when he's watching from the sideline. So, Tennessee's rail thin on the offensive line. We'll see if they can push Missouri around like Missouri's been pushed around at some point. Given Tennessee's kind of struggles in the pass game a little bit, and it's kind of been feast or famine. I'm sure Missouri's going to load it up with everybody and say, hey, beat us. If you can beat us, then we'll deal with it there. But I can't imagine they're not going to come in and say, we're not going to let you get started running. We want to see if you can make some plays consistently in the passing game, which Tennessee's not done a very good job of to this point.
If Missouri's able to find a way to make them go to the air to beat them, I mean, who are the guys, the receivers that are capable of causing some problems?
Well, Javonte Payton is a transfer from Mississippi State who was not really a factor early, but the last 2 weeks has kind of got it going. He had a really nice kind of toe tap touchdown against Tennessee Tech on a deeper ball, and then he hit the sluggo or the stutter go last week against Florida for 75 yards. He's kind of their vertical big play guy. Velus Jones is the guy who's probably best with the ball in his hand underneath stuff. Jalen Hyatt's been the guy this season that's just been maddening to everybody. He's been hurt, missed some time there, but had 2 big drops in the first game and just hasn't gotten going. I mean, he really hasn't. And so that's a guy everybody thought would be Tennessee's best weapon, and he's not been. Their most consistent kind of go-to guy has been their tight end, Jacob Warren. They've thrown the ball a good bit to the tight end. So it's kind of by committee. They don't have one guy or 2 guys where you go, man, that guy's going to have 120 catches this year. He's going to have 1,200 yards receiving. You don't see that. But they got 3 or 4 guys that they try to get it to. And, we'll see. I mean, last week was different. Florida's a big pressure team all the time, come at you at all times. So the screen game was important last week and try to have some beaters against some blitzes. Missouri seems to blitz on more conventional downs. I mean, more conventional situations, 2nd long, 3rd long. They seem to like the A-gap blitz with Aldridge up the middle. And, they got a couple of guys off the edge that have caused people some problems. So Missouri's pretty good defensively when they can get a team in or 2nd long, and they got to throw the point to avoid, in my opinion, on Saturday. If they're in a bunch of those situations, then I think advantage Missouri defense. If Tennessee can run the ball and keep it 3rd and manageable, it's hard for Missouri to do some of the things that I think they're better at than stopping the run.
Talking again with Brent Hubbs from VolQuest.com. That's the Tennessee site on the Rivals Network. They will certainly have every angle of Missouri's opponent this week. You guys go over there, check out what they've done all week long and leading up to Saturday. So, Brent, want to switch sides of the ball with you. I know when Josh Heupel's the head coach, the attention is going to go on the offense. But defensively, where's this Tennessee team at? I mean, I know, hey, you go from a defensive guy to an offensive guy. The transfer portal, I know, hit them hard. But where have they been through 4 weeks defensively?
More sound, to be honest with you. They've been a little more sound. Have they played great? I mean, they got into a situation where they were not sound against Emory Jones on some of the runs last week. I think Emory Jones can do that to a lot of people. Mm-hmm. But Tennessee didn't tackle him well and couldn't contain him. But they haven't had this glaring some of the glaring busts that you saw previously. This defense is more simplistic. It's communicated in a more simplistic fashion. Jeremy Pruitt always wanted to be in the perfect defense. That's kind of that Nick Saban, Kirby Smart mentality. They want to sub and all of those things. And so Jeremy Pruitt was trying to get Tennessee in the perfect play every time. And when he got him in that play, They were good. That's how they beat Auburn at Auburn a couple of years ago. But when he couldn't get them into that perfect play, they gave up a lot, and kids kind of played slow. This defense is playing hard. They're playing fast, but they have shortcomings, and they have a hard time getting to the quarterback. Missouri does a great job protecting the quarterback. I think 2 sacks all season long, giving up. Tennessee has a hard time getting there without bringing extra people. And then we'll see if Tennessee can tighten up some of their zone coverage and some of their underneath stuff with their linebackers. They struggled greatly a year ago in the middle of the field trying to stop anybody. It's been a little better, this year. It'll get challenged greatly this week because that's where Missouri seems to like to throw the footballs between the hash marks.
What's the depth like that on that side of the ball? I mean, I know I've heard some stuff that, hey, the leading tackler is a guy who previously in his career was on the offensive side of the ball. I mean, do they have multiple guys, or is it kind of, hey, this is the front line, but beyond that, not sure?
Well, they've got a handful of bodies they play on the defensive front. They'll go 9 or 10 on the defensive front. They don't have anybody that you go, woohoo,
Right.
That's an all-conference player. That guy's going to, get on the draft board high. I mean, they got a bunch of effort guys up front is kind of where they are. I chuckle a little bit at the Jeremy Banks notion. He was a running back when he came to Tennessee. He hasn't played a running back in almost 2 years.
Right.
I think Missouri's probably got a couple of guys who are playing in the secondary that were former offensive players, right?
I mean, the guy who started at quarterback against Tennessee last year is now a strong safety who got an interception last week. Yeah, so
right.
Yeah.
So I mean, it happens, and so Jeremy Banks was actually a linebacker, has been a linebacker longer than Aaron Beasley's been a linebacker. Okay. Now Beasley's played safety and he's played running back. I mean, Jeremy Banks has been at linebacker. Now he missed all of spring. They've got to try to rein him in, but he is their most aggressive, most physical, downhill in the box, go get him kind of guy. But those linebackers are going to be challenged because of what Coach Drinkwitz does with Tyler Beatty and the different ways that they use him and the way they motion him out and the way they get him into space puts a real taxing stress on your linebackers. So we'll see how Tennessee plays in space. Jeremy's a good athlete. He knows the game. He doesn't play probably slow enough. And I don't know, it sounds crazy, but he overruns some stuff and he probably takes some chances he doesn't need to take. In the secondary, pretty experienced group overall. They need to play better at safety than what they played to this point, but they're pretty veteran, pretty experienced. Theo Jackson's been the biggest surprise playing the nickel position for this year, but he's a veteran who's finally getting his chance. Willie Martinez recruited him out of high school. Now he's back coaching him, and I think that's been a match made in heaven for both.
The criticism of Josh as an offensive coordinator, especially here, and it was funny, we asked this question for 2 years, and Barry Odom always denied it. And then as soon as Heupel took the Central Florida job, Barry Odom basically said it was 100% correct. When Josh's offense gets that first down, and they can go 100 miles an hour and it works, it's great. When they fail to get that first down, what it does is put you 3 and out in 17 seconds. And I've always said that Josh's offense causes almost as many problems for his own defense when it's not working as it can for opposing defenses when it is. And I don't know if through 4 weeks you have seen any of that yet, but I didn't get to watch the Florida game. I'm not sure if it happened there, but is that a concern that, hey, we know time of possession doesn't matter, all that. We know we're going to be 128th in the country, but at some point you got to have the things that protect your own defense a little bit.
Well, they've not been in this. I mean, the Pitt game, they were playing catch up in the second half because they were down 2 scores. So obviously you're going to go fast. Last week, they get down 10 points after the first drive of the second half. So now all of a sudden you're starting to kind of play fast. They are not playing, and I've seen this, written on 2.9 plays per minute or whatever the case may be. They are not playing as crazy fast as you've seen this offense play before. Is that to protect the defense? Maybe a little bit. Is that because the offense just can't run it as fast yet? Maybe. I don't think it's a conscious thing where Josh Heupel's like, no, we're going to slow it down to protect everybody and do this. I just don't think they've gotten into that kind of rhythm. We've asked Heupel about the tempo, and he's like, yeah, we're not playing nearly fast enough. It's going to be hard for them to play at the pace he wants to play in year one because of their lack of depth on the offensive side of the ball as much as anything else. So it's – if they get that first down, they've gone fast. I mean, they were really fast in the Bowling Green game with Joe Milton. He seems to run it faster than Hooker. He just doesn't make enough plays. I think Hooker's still trying to figure out how to run it closer to the pace that Heupel wants to run. But clearly, that's his philosophy. He's not going to get away from it. He's going to play no huddle. He's going to play up tempo fast, and defensively, you're going to have to deal with it. You're going to have to manage it, and because that's in his conviction. He doesn't plan on changing at this point, and I don't see that changing anytime soon. That's the system he's going to live and die by.
All right, so we'll get you out of here on this. I look at this game and I think, hey, the winner's got a path to 6, maybe 7 wins, one of those kind of minor bowl games. The team that walks out of here 2-3, I think it's a lot tougher to find that path to 6 wins. I mean, yeah, I almost view this as like I called it yesterday the Duke's Mayo Bowl playoff game, something like that. I mean, do you think that's fair? Is this a game that kind of both teams, hey, if you want to be playing an extra game, you better get this one?
Well, listen, when you're where Tennessee's at, and I'm not going to speak for Missouri because I don't cover them every day, but when you're where Tennessee's at, you start looking to try to count 6.
Right.
How do you get to 6? And this is one of those toss-up games. Pitt was a toss-up game at home. They didn't get done. This one's closer to a toss-up game after seeing how Missouri has been the first few weeks and how Tennessee has been. There's been moments of good, I mean, I think Missouri's a couple of plays away from being unbeaten, but you go back and watch that Kentucky game, they're a couple of turnovers away from that being a pretty lopsided Kentucky win, in my opinion. So it's one of those deals where, when you start trying to get to 6, this is a game when you're in that 50-50 toss-up game, it's kind of like the swing vote in an election, right? Swing state, you got to land it.
Yep.
And I think this is a big game for both teams. And
so there it is, guys. I mean, that's what it comes down to me. This is one of these teams is probably playing in the postseason, and one of them probably isn't. And this game may very well be what determines that. It is about 45 minutes from kickoff. We're going to check in with Mitchell Forty here in just a few minutes over at Faurot Field. But Mizzou leads the all-time series 5-4. Last year's game, not close. Tennessee was not very good last year, but they ran all over Missouri, and that is certainly the concern today. I appreciate Brent Hubbs earlier this week taking a little bit of time to talk things over with us and go through the Vols and break down the opposing side of things. Want to look around the rest of the league real quick. Here's what's going on elsewhere in the SEC today. Arkansas and Georgia in a huge game at 11 o'clock. 2 top 10 teams. Georgia's favored by 18.5 in this game. A lot of people think that's too many, but Arkansas struggles a little bit offensively. Georgia's got a great offense. I haven't seen anybody really picking Arkansas to win that game, but it's interesting. Like, this is kind of I don't want to say the prove-it game because Arkansas almost proved it last week, right? Texas was the breakout game. A&M was the prove-it game. This is the, oh, my God, if they win this, you better start talking about some real things game, right? Like, this is we're going to talk about Arkansas and can they make the playoff if they win this game. Now, I don't think there's much of a chance they win this game, but that one's at 11 o'clock, same time as Mizzou and Tennessee. Flip over to that during commercials. Game of the day, probably Ole Miss at Alabama. This one's a little bit different. This is like Arkansas, Georgia, but a level up because there are a lot of people not only thinking Ole Miss could make this close, but a lot of people seem to think Ole Miss can pull this off. I'm not one of them. Alabama, 14.5-point favorite. I can see this as a game that Nick Saban really makes a point and says, you're going to come at the king, you best not miss. And I think because of what Ole Miss did last year, which is put up 48 points and 660 yards, I think they have Alabama's attention. Alabama will take them very seriously in this game, and I think that's actually a negative for Ole Miss. I think it would be better if maybe Ole Miss was sneaking up on Alabama a little bit in this one. Troy is at South Carolina in a game that nobody really cares about. I would assume South Carolina's going to win this game. I don't know anything about Troy. South Carolina's favored. If South Carolina doesn't win this game, that's bad news for them. Florida and Kentucky is actually the one I'm probably looking most forward to today. I think this could be the most competitive game in the league. It's at 5 o'clock, which works out well. Should be done with the postgame show. Can sit down and watch some of this while we do some writing and things like that. It's at Lexington. Florida's favored by 8.5. Seems like a little bit much for me. I think this is going to be a one-score football game. Mississippi State at A&M, that game could be like 6-5. Neither one of them's any good on offense, really. But both are pretty good on defense. So in College Station, A&M loses that one, and boy, the wheels are starting to come off. Auburn at LSU, two teams that, I don't think they're great, but the winner of this game could be, that second, third place team in the SEC West, theoretically. Two teams that are trying to find it a little bit, have had a couple good weeks and also a couple disappointing losses, even though they've been to pretty solid teams. Auburn coming off a near loss to, I forget, I want to say Jacksonville. It wasn't Jacksonville State. That's who Florida State lost to. I don't know. It was an FCS team last week, though. So there's the rest of your slate in the SEC after Mizzou and Tennessee are done. Adam says that 3 starters have been ruled out for Tennessee. The starting safety, a linebacker, and a center all ruled out. That is interesting. And Dave Matter says that Hendon Hooker will start for Tennessee in this game, which I think we all expected. Hendon Hooker is the guy. I know there were some, injury questions with Hendon Hooker, but I think everybody expected he would be the guy. The question really will be if Joe Milton gets a look, if he gets any snaps. I'm not really sure he should. In listening to Brent talk and some of the other stuff I've seen from Tennessee this week, it seems to me that the offense is just better with Hendon Hooker, but we'll see how that one how it goes at quarterback. Hendon Hooker certainly more of a running threat. Joe Milton has a better arm, but it just hasn't ever really kind of worked for Joe Milton, whether it was at Michigan or at Tennessee. There was, there have been a couple of moments, but overall, it seems to me Tennessee's a much better offense with the Virginia Tech transfer, Hendon Hooker. I want to take one more look at the matchups, the numbers, before we chat with Mitchell from over at the stadium here. Missouri, again, total offense certainly in Missouri's favor. Now, that's slanted a little bit by the numbers from the SEMO game, although, to be fair, Tennessee has played Tennessee Tech, so they also have an FCS game on the schedule. Tennessee running 4.5 more plays a game. It's not a significant difference. They do run it better. Missouri throws it quite a bit better. Missouri does a better job of hanging on to the football. And Missouri has had fewer drops. Tennessee, one of the bigger drop teams in the SEC. So that's a thing to watch. I think wide receiver is a place where it could be interesting for Missouri. Tyler Wynn says would love to see us run the ball a lot and control the clock today. We're going to talk to Mitch in a minute, so we'll probably have to take a break from this discussion. I get that the common thought is the best way to control an explosive offense is to keep them on the sideline. But I don't know if that's true, because explosive offenses oftentimes are going to score in a minute and a half, right? 5 plays or something like that. Now, Tennessee is not necessarily explosive. They just go really fast. Explosive, I think, is misleading. But point remains, Tennessee doesn't care about time of possession. They're going to go fast, so just because you keep them off the field, hey, you could win the time of possession battle 36-24. I'm not sure it matters that much. The things that do matter are third downs and red zone. You need to be better than Tennessee in those regards, because they are going to, if you're getting them off the field in third down, if you're holding them down in the red zone, then I think that makes a much bigger difference than simply running the ball, staying on the field. Missouri isn't necessarily a ball control offense. They're not going to be out there slowing things down. Now, Drinkwitz did tell me this week, hey, you do have to be smart about what you do as a play caller, and you do have to do things to protect your defense, but ultimately, as the offensive coordinator, my job is to score points, and so that's what they have to do. They have to go about it that way. Whether that takes, 2 plays in 27 seconds or 12 plays in 6.5 minutes doesn't really matter. I don't think they've just got to find a way to get points on their drives. We will after we talk to Mitch here in just a minute, we'll kind of wrap things up by taking some of your guys' predictions and some of what you think. So anytime you want to start throwing them in there, feel free in the comments section, and we will get to them. Cam Cameron says, "Whoa, I just blew up Cam Cameron's comment way too big there." So we will get back to it. I'm not sure what happened, to be quite honest with you, but all right, we're gonna go back to Cam's comment in just a minute. All right, we're gonna hit the phone line now, and Mitchell Forty checking in from I assume, I don't know, Mitch. I can't see out my window. Is it still a rainy furrow field, or has that passed?
I would say drizzly. It is not raining too hard. At least it wasn't on my way in. Doesn't appear to be pouring right now, but it looks like we still got a little precipitation falling. So definitely a little bit of a damp day at furrow field.
Yeah, it seems like it should mostly be out of the area. And sorry, I might have had Mitch muted there. He said it's still raining a little bit, but he said it's raining a little bit, but it's supposed to mostly be out of the area in the next hour. It doesn't seem to me like this is something that's greatly going to impact the game or change play calling.
No, I don't think so. I mean, unless something changes drastically, obviously, with field turf being how it is, it's not. People aren't going to be sliding around, and I don't think we've got a strong storm or gale force winds or anything like that. So they impact attendance a little bit. I don't think it will impact the actual game on the field.
All right, so let's run through injuries. We know for Missouri that Mookie Cooper and Darius Robinson are not playing today. I saw a tweet that indicated Case Cook is in uniform. Is that right?
Yeah, so they're actually, no one's wearing uniforms and they're wearing their hoodies again that aren't actual jerseys, so it's hard to see who all is out there for sure, but I can say for sure that Case Cook went through stretches and warm-ups with the team just because of how they line up. He's a captain, so he's easy to pick out, and I can also say that Nico Hay is not in uniform. I just spotted him off to the side, not wearing wearing street clothes, so I can say that I believe Case Cook is in and Nico Hay is out. I don't know much about anyone else at this point.
Okay, yeah, so with Nico Hay out, I mean, Daniel Parker gets a few more snaps. Maybe, yes, Messiah Swinson to play some. I don't think it's like this game-changing thing.
I don't think so either. I mean, Daniel Parker probably, like you said, plays a little bit, probably kind of assumes both of their roles, and then, in two tight end situations, they'll put Messiah Swinson out there. But, yeah, I mean, it's not like this offense revolves around Nico Hay.
Yeah. So you said you couldn't really say about anybody else, so no word for sure on Barrett Bannister, who was the only other player on the injury list?
I thought I saw him out there, but I don't want to say anything definite because I don't want to be wrong. I can't really read the numbers of what they're wearing right now, so I'm just kind of basing off of body type and size. So I honestly don't know for sure, but I think he's out there. I'll double check and post on the board as soon as we know it, once they come out in their full uniforms.
Can you confirm that Missouri has any other running backs on the roster besides Tyler Beatty for this game?
No. I mean, I think we might see him play a lot of snaps again. We did talk to Michael Cox this week, so that was kind of cool. I mean, I know he exists now. Power Mizzou legend Michael Cox, that is.
So, I mean, I don't know. I look at this one a lot like I looked at BC. They're pretty even teams. I'd give Missouri a little bit of an edge, but ultimately this one's probably coming down to the fourth quarter and going to be a pretty close game.
Yeah, I agree. Really not much would surprise me in this game except if somehow neither team scores many points. I think that this will be high scoring. I think that, either team could come out on top. I think, obviously you can do maybe a little bit of an edge being at home and being a slightly more experienced team within their coach's system. I think that probably, though, it just comes down to whichever team makes fewer mistakes. I think both offenses should be able to move the ball more or less at will. And, if one team wins the turnover battle or has significantly fewer penalties or gives up fewer big plays, stuff like that, I think that'll really decide the game.
On the Tennessee side, somebody mentioned in the comments that they've got a safety, a linebacker, and their starting center out. We kind of knew about the center. Have you guys gotten any official word on Tennessee injuries?
No, I mean, they haven't put out an injury report or anything like that, and I don't know enough to, go through their roster and look, before a game and who all's there and not there. I do know that Hendon Hooker was warming up, and there was some chatter in the press box that he's expected to start today at quarterback. But other than that, I don't have much on the injury news there.
Yeah, it'd be kind of interesting to see if we see both quarterbacks from Josh Heupel. I'm not sure we should. I mean, they seem to be a better team with Hendon Hooker.
Yeah, but I think we will, because they've played multiple quarterbacks in every game so far this season. So even when one of them, Joe Milton, was hurt, so I think that there's a decent chance that they at least give whoever the second quarterback is today, whether it's Joe Milton or Harrison Bailey, at least give him some snaps.
All right, we kind of do this every week, and I understand. Look, the weather sucks. It's 11 a.m. It's not going to be a full stadium, but what were the parking lots like walking in?
Yeah, I mean, like you said, it's hard to gauge for sure based on just walking around the stadium. But I was pleasantly surprised with how many people were out tailgating, given, like you said, the weather and the 11 a.m. situation. So I don't know. I can't really. I'm not going to try to ballpark an attendance number. I'm sure it's going to be somewhat similar to the first two games, but there were people there. It wasn't a ghost town walking on the stadium.
Well, that's good news. All right, we're going to start taking predictions from people, and then just give you the chance to, if you want to change what you said in your game day preview yesterday, if anything has changed your mind in the last 22 hours, feel free to alter your prediction.
Yeah, no, nothing's changed my mind. The absence of Nico Hay is not enough to sway me too much. I think it's going to be a high-scoring game, like I said. I'm going to give the edge to Mizzou, but nothing would stun me. I picked Mizzou 41-35, and I'm sticking with it.
Okay, I assume that's at least 6 of those points come on Harrison Mevis 70-yard field goals.
Exactly, yes. He's going to set the world record twice.
All right, good deal, Mitch.
Maybe all is 41. No, 41's not divisible by 3, but maybe all the points somehow come from Harrison Mevis.
He could get 13 field goals and a safety. That's where I'm going.
Yeah. Yeah, he's going to play D-line and get a safety.
All right, man. Well, appreciate it. Everybody follow along on the site, and we'll talk to you later on.
All right, sounds good, everyone. Enjoy the game.
All right, Mitchell Forty live from Faurot Field, checking in, giving you guys the latest there. So it sounds like Case Cook is a go. Nico Hay is not. No definitive word at this point in time on Barrett Bannister. You can follow Mitch on Twitter. You can also follow along with him, obviously, on our message board. He is going to have full coverage all day long. So want to get to Cam Cameron's comments real quick, and then please put your guys' predictions in the comments section. We'll kind of run through them. I'll give you my prediction. We got probably 10, 12 minutes left here before we sign off, so we'll run through those in just a minute. With Beatty's will I transfer or won't I thing every offseason, do you think Drink promised him this amount of touches to get him to stay? He's getting more touches than Roundtree was. I don't think so. I think it's very simple. The gap between Tyler Beatty and anybody else at running back is big enough that I think Eli Drinkwitz feels uncomfortable when Beatty's not on the field, which is why he is playing 92% of the snaps almost in the 3 FBS games so far. Now, look, I've said over and over, it's my biggest concern. It's got to change. I don't know if it's got to change today, but I think it's got to start changing next week because if you want to have Beatty around for that South Carolina, Florida, Georgia, or South Carolina, Florida, Arkansas stretch to finish the season, I think you've got to find a way to get him a break, whether that is Michael Cox, whether it's Elijah Young, whether it's Dawson Downing, whether it's kind of spreading it among all three of those guys. I don't really care. I just think you have to find ways to take a little bit of the load here off of Tyler Beatty. Spencer with our first prediction, he's saying 35-24 Mizzou. Heupel will flirt with Milton getting snaps and throwing the ball too much on first down. Mizzou manufactures 5 stops and the offense will do what it does. That's the recipe for Missouri, right? Get stops. Just like we said, 2 or 3 of them a half is probably enough. If Josh Heupel wants to throw the ball on first down, I think Missouri would be just fine with Josh Heupel throwing the ball on first down. Eric says, can't see Mizzou manufacturing any stops. Tennessee will only stop themselves. That's the only way we can win this game. That is certainly possible. We shall see. Adam asking about the backup after Daniel Parker Jr. That's Messiah Swinson. David Dowell says his son is on the Cannon crew. He predicts a lot of push-ups for his son. Adam says 41-24 Tennessee. Eric says 48-27 Tennessee. Tiercell, a little more in my ballpark, says Mizzou 38, Tennessee 35. A lot of Volunteers picks in this. I'm a little bit surprised. I have Mizzou 31-30. It feels like that might be a little low scoring. I think that actually would hit the under. But I have Mizzou 31-30. Again, probably on a Harrison Mevis field goal to win the game, to be quite honest with you. That involves probably Missouri 2 or 3 times holding Tennessee to field goals instead of touchdowns. And I think that's really the key. Red zone defense, get off the field a couple times on third down, which, as we've said, goes back to what you do on first down. I want to take one more look here just kind of at the other games that you guys are going to be watching today in the SEC. If I can actually find them, that will be helpful. Here we go. Arkansas, Georgia. I picked Georgia to cover the 18.5. Not many people have. Ole Miss at Alabama. I picked Alabama to cover the 14.5. Not many people have. Troy at South Carolina. We didn't pick, but I'd pick South Carolina. Florida at Kentucky. I picked Florida to win, but Kentucky to cover the 8.5 at home. Mississippi State, a 7-point underdog at A&M. I picked Mississippi State to cover there. Wouldn't be shocked if they win. Auburn actually favored at LSU. I picked LSU to win and cover in that game. So those are my SEC picks. Stuart with a prediction and probably the best one. Last team with the ball wins. Yeah, I mean, I think that's fair. You know, based on what we have seen, I agree. Dan picks Tennessee 45, Mizzou 38. And I think Dan thinks what a lot of people think. It's time for this defense to show up and prove something. You know, maybe they could get a stop. Like maybe Missouri could be up, Tennessee gets the ball back with 3 minutes left, and Missouri's defense actually bows up and gets a stop. I think that would make a lot of people feel better about this one, and a lot of people feel better where the defense is and, you know, where they might be going forward. Because, again, if you don't win this game, I don't know how you get to 6. Justin says 41-38 Mizzou, changing his pick from 38-34 Tennessee, giving Missouri an extra 7 points. So it looks like it's about 50-50 and predictions on this one, and I think that's fair. I mean, I think you play this game 10 times. Maybe Missouri wins 6. Dan with the worst prediction of the day so far, which is a 4-hour game. He's probably right, especially as much as these teams will likely throw the ball. I just don't want to see that, to be quite honest with you. But so if it's a 4-hour game, that means our post game's probably starting around 3:15 or so. But again, the way for you to figure out when post game starts, just subscribe to the channel. You'll get notifications when we go live. The plan after the game and during the game, again, follow Mitchell Forty, Joel Lorenzi, going to have all your guys' coverage from Furrow Field today while I'm here kind of handling the pre and post game. But once the game is over, Mitchell will immediately post his immediate post-game reaction thoughts. You guys can read that. I take usually about 5 to 10 minutes to kind of get some of the stats uploaded, get some of the numbers input, all that, and get set up here in the office. And then within about 10 minutes of the end of the game, while Mitch and Joel are covering the post-game and covering Eli Drinkwitz's press conference and all that, we will jump on here with the Boulevard post-game drink. Ballpark 2:30 to 3 o'clock, but if you subscribe and set the alert, you're going to get a notification when we go live. We hope all you guys certainly come back here and join us for that. Should be lively because this is the swing game of the swing games, guys. If there are 5 swing games in this season, and we throw South Carolina and Arkansas in that category, UK and BC have already happened. If you lose this one, you can't have a winning record in the swing games. And if you can't have a winning record in the swing games, I don't think you can have a winning record because you're probably going to lose to Georgia and Florida. So we'll see how it goes. Want to thank all of you guys for being a part of this and for joining us. early. We've had a string here of 11 a.m. games. That's going to end next week. Breakfast King says he had an epic night at the Doobie Brothers show, but did make it up in time for kickoff and made it up in time to join the last few minutes of the postgame show. So we appreciate that. We appreciate all you guys that started your day early with us here on the pregame call presented by Call in Gentry Law Group, and obviously appreciate our sponsors. That is Call in Gentry Law Group, located down in Jefferson City. You can find them online at callgentry.com. You can schedule a consultation through their website. You can give them a phone call at 573-691-4567. Doubt anybody's in the office right now. Those guys are probably all hunkered down or at the stadium watching Mizzou and Tennessee this morning. But Monday morning, they'll be back in the office. Get in touch with Chip, Emily, Jason, Nick, anybody down there, and they can take care of any injury, any legal needs you may have, including personal injury and wrongful death, certainly, but any other, legal category you might need taken care of. The fine folks at Call in Gentry can do it, 573-691-4567, or online at callgentry.com. Appreciate them being a part of it here. Appreciate you guys being a part of it. Here we go. 20 minutes to kickoff. Just reset it real quick. SEC Network at 11 a.m. Tiger Radio Network with Mike Kelly and now Mizzou Hall of Famer Howard Richards. He was inducted last night. Tennessee trying to win its second straight and tie up the all-time series 5-5. Missouri trying to take that 6-4 lead, go to 3-2 on the season. Winner a game over 500 and pointed toward the postseason. Loser a game below 500 and scrambling to figure out how they get to 6. We'll be back here after the game. You guys enjoy it. Thanks for watching the pregame call brought to you by Call in Gentry Law Group. We'll be back with the postgame show.